Are you a corporate escapee and wasting valuable time attempting to figure challenges out on your own? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you firsthand experiences of guests going through many of the struggles you face each and every day.
We get real with no corporate BS. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello and welcome to Corporate Escapees, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of people who are successfully running their own businesses, hearing their war stories and motivations for making the jump from their corporate gig. I'm your host, Paul Higgins, and our guest today is someone that left corporate after a very extensive 20 years in IT, and unfortunately it was due to a very tragic circumstance. He then joined his partner, Michelle, and they decided to go into marketing. And you've got to remember that Fred was an absolute marketing skeptic. And then what you'll get is some brilliant advice around how to use LinkedIn in your marketing. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Fred McMurray from Mediavine Marketing. Welcome, Fred McMurray from Mediavine Marketing to the Corporate Escapees podcast brought to you by Build, Live, Give. So, Fred, we're going to get to know plenty about you today, but why don't we start with something that your family or friends would know about you that we wouldn't?
Well, Paul, I'm glad to be here. Something that family and friends know. So my last corporate job was being the director of technology for a Black Angus cattle company. And the plant that I was in charge of the technology for, was given the honor of opening the plant and putting the first 2 head of cattle down. So I'm a cattle killer. How's that for a weird?
Yeah, past one, I'm hoping, Fred.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, there you go. Well, you're my first cattle killer on the program. So that is a unique place that you hold. And, you talk about your corporate career. Why don't you just give us a quick snapshot of what that career was like, and then we can go into why you left.
Okay, well, I spent 20 plus years in technology, in information technology. If it needed to be programmed, at one point in my career, I did it. Or if it needed to be a phone system put in, I did it. Networks built, I did it. I actually, in my last job, I designed the only RFID tracking subsystem for private on-site mad cow testing labs. How is that one for a weird one? So I've been I was in the 20 years in IT, I pretty much did anything you can think of in technology. I had a good time doing it for the most part.
Great. Well, I know that they're looking at a new crypto way of tracking mad cow. So that's the latest development, which will be really interesting. And, when you decided to leave after the 20 years, I suppose, what was the reason why you left? And, was it easier or harder than you expected?
I actually left at the beginning of 2005. At the end of 2003, December 15, 2003, my wife had a heart attack. And 2 days later, I had to disconnect her from life support, and she died in my arms. And I spent about a year finishing off the job that I was doing at the cattle company. I had told them I would, and I needed to get my daughter off to college. And at that point, I said, you folks have been wonderful. You supported me, but I'm done because life is way, way too short to work for somebody else. So it was kind of one of those things that I said, I'm done. I'm out of here. And then I thought, what should I do? So I started a technology company. And was it hard? Doing that part, no, that was simple. But I guess the hardest part for me was everything I didn't know that I thought I did. But that said, had I known everything that would be hard that I didn't know then, I still would have done it.
Yeah, it's a balance, isn't it? Like, I think if you really know how hard it is and got told that, you wouldn't leave. And then the reverse is, trying to get some advice to sort of miss some of the big mistakes. And what sort of advice did you get along the way that, you can share with someone listening right now if they're just leaving?
So I guess the best advice I would give is find something that you're passionate about and that you can do. So in other words, you might be passionate about being an astronaut, but most of us never become an astronaut. So
Yes.
find something that you're passionate about, and then don't give up on it. Just keep pounding away, because the vast majority of people will they'll work along until they hit a point where it gets hard, and then they'll abandon it. And there's always going to be ups and downs and stuff you don't expect. And the only way to get through it is to just grit your teeth, put your head down, and walk through the wall. And sometimes you have to walk through walls.
Yeah, look, I think tenacity is definitely one of the key traits. So the next section is the build section. So when people ask you, hey, Fred, what do you do at Mediavine Marketing? How do you answer that?
Depends on if I've had a glass of wine or not.
Well, let's assume you have.
Well, what I normally tell people, so if I'm being straight, I say we do marketing, and then they kind of look at me. What I do is I help people buy my clients' goods and services. And I like to put it that way because everybody wants to sell. And I hate being sold. I'm one of those people that if I walk into a store and somebody walks up to me, I don't like being sold. It's like if I'm going to buy, I'm going to buy. But I don't like to be sold. So
Yes.
we kind of approach marketing that same way of we try to educate and inform potential buyers of our clients' products and services.
Great. And what's something, marketing is, I find it, especially small business marketing, is so intriguing at the moment. But what's something that you know as an expert on small business marketing that, we listening now wouldn't?
Well, this is something you would know, but podcasting is an awesome way to get found. If it's done right, you can get Google to come to your site literally every 2 hours. You can create backlinks all over the place. People who you have no clue of can find you and actually start to convince themselves that they want to be on the show or want to buy your goods and services. And it's one of those, in some ways, best kept secrets that I've ever found, is that podcasting is a phenomenal way to get word of mouth traffic.
Yeah, totally agree. And I know also you run a LinkedIn local network. What are some of the key trends you're seeing at the moment in LinkedIn for B2B business?
So, all right. So I've had a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn for years. There for a while, LinkedIn I thought was really just going to implode. But Microsoft seems to, at least the last, I'll say 8-9 months, started to turn it around. And one thing I found, and most people I don't think realize this, used to be with a LinkedIn group, and we started using LinkedIn groups years ago, but you used to be able to message people directly as members of the group. And they took that away. And then about 3.5-4 months ago, they brought it back. So now if you're a member of a group, you can talk to other members of the group and start a dialogue with them. And this is if it's used right, that's a phenomenal way to connect with people without having to send an invite or an in-mail or something like that. And you already know based on the group that you're in, because that person's in that group, you already know they have some of the same interests that you have. So you've got those first two, you got the way to communicate with them, and you already know you got a couple of topics that you can, rapport has already started to be built.
Brilliant. That's a brilliant tip. And what do you see as some of the, things that people go around, particularly marketing the wrong way? What do you see constantly with some of your clients or people that should be your clients and aren't?
Well, all right. So I actually had this discussion earlier today with a potential, actually now a potential referral partner. But he was asking me about marketing and how his issue was, as he put it, he was always getting requests to do for people that wanted to do his marketing. And I said, I can't go vet most of them. And I said, yeah, I see that too. I get enough people offering to manage my LinkedIn profile or all this other stuff, and they've never taken the time to actually read what I've written to know that that's something we do. So, and I see this in email marketing too, where they'll be emailing me about, hey, I can help you with this or this or this. And it's like, folks, so I'm a sneaky person. Yes. I have some old email addresses of my first company, which we shut down after the great crash in 2009. And so I use that email as embeds in my social profiles. So when people start to email me and tell me about that company, it tells me they've done no due diligence.
Yes.
And I shut them down. So now the short answer of that is they don't bother to do due diligence on who they're targeting. And they try to target everybody. And that sometimes it works if you got a multi-billion-dollar budget. But since most of us don't have that for a marketing budget, and if anybody out there does have a multi-billion-dollar budget, marketing budget, please call me. But it's not targeting who they're trying to get to. I don't need to get to 1 million people that only 10 of them are going to respond. I'd much rather get to 100 people and get 5 or 20 to respond, because my message is actually resonating with them.
Yeah, look, I can't help it sometimes when on LinkedIn I get one of those classics where they haven't read my profile. It's a generic one. I just reply back with, is this message working for you? ? Yeah, it's amazing. Some people are actually brave enough to come back and say, I've just started trying it. I'm like, well, I suggest you quickly pivot and change, because, throw mud against the wall is very expensive. And, when I was at Coca-Cola, we used to, do that, the old analogy of, 50% of your marketing doesn't work. You just don't know which 50%. But, in small business, you just can't get that wrong. And talking about your ideal clients, who are your ideal clients?
So, for me, the ones I prefer to talk to, because I've taken a specialty in franchisees and franchisors. So I look to talk to franchisees with a franchise that's got a $500,000 a year revenue or above, or I look to talk to franchisors that have somewhere between 25 and 199 locations. We determined that you get smaller than that, they're trying to deal with their own stuff. You get larger than that, and they brought everything in-house, because a franchisor should actually be able to be a marketing company, right?
Yes.
Never mind. So that's my preferred target. With my partners, we tend to sit in the, we'll say 5 million to 5 million to about 50 million, although this year we pushed that as high as 400 million. But those are ones that come to us. We don't market to them. They're just too difficult.
Great. And just tell us, how long did it take you to get to that ideal client? And, it's very prescriptive, and I really like the fact that you've targeted it well. But, how many iterations or pivots did you have to go through to get to that?
Well, that's a phenomenal question. I used to run away, screaming into the night away from franchisees, because you'd go talk to them and they'd say, "Oh, that sounds great. Go talk to corporate." And then you'd go to start talking to corporate and they didn't want to hear from you. So you ended up running through quicksand basically and getting nowhere. So it literally took us about 4 or 5 years for me to figure out, you know what, I've already got franchise clients. They're wonderful because once you establish your credentials with them, you almost never leave. And the key to it was having somebody walk you in that the franchisee trusted. So it literally took us it was 2016, so about 6 years.
Right. Yeah, and look, I think, if you're listening and, it will be an iteration. And I know for me, so often we've, gone in and thought that's the perfect vertical or ideal client, and then you had to pivot. But I think the most important thing is, test, measure, and then pivot. So I think some great advice from you there, Fred. As far as, what your business, media, line marketing, what it's going to look like in 3 years, what's your aspirations for the business?
So we're in California, and we've actually started to make inroads into the cannabis market. So we expect to pull more cash of that. We've got clients all over the world. One of our current clients is a software product manager, so the International Software Product Managers Association out of Germany, and we're doing the marketing for their 2019 conference, and I think it's Germany. So for me, it's not really much more of a change. It's just growing the company and adding new people, brains, talents to the company. So there's not really a short-term goal for me. My goal is more that in 22 years, when my granddaughter, who's 14 months old, finishes college, she can take over my job. That. So, yeah.
Great. And as far as I always love asking marketing companies this question, but what's your number one source of leads?
So the standard answer is networking. And there's so when you're starting out, to me, the best way to do it is to do networking. Get your face out there, because you meet people, you find out what they need, and you understand if you're on target or not. Because you go out and meet 100 people and all of them look at you like you're insane for what you're trying to market, you're pretty much on the wrong path. That said, if you can make that, I like to say, if you can put that hook in their brain so they never forget you, they will be that gift that keeps on giving forever and ever. So if it's early stage, face-to-face networking, stuff like that, that's phenomenal. These days, I probably most of all use LinkedIn. Obviously, being a marketing company, we're a business-to-business company, and there's just too much data in LinkedIn to allow me to target other businesses to at least start dialogues. If I'm looking at B2C, then it kind of depends on the age of your target, but assuming your target's 35 and up, then Facebook to me is probably the best place to generate leads.
Mm. Yeah, great. And I really love, we'll put all the notes, all the links in the notes in the show notes, but I really like that LinkedIn group suggestion as well. I'm going to go back and check my groups because I think that was a great point you brought up before. As far as your team, like how big's your team? Where are they based?
Well, I've got 2 partners with me in California. I've got a couple of people in the Midwest, Wisconsin, Chicagoland area. I've got 2 technical teams in India, and then I've got graphics designers in Venezuela. I think there may be 1 or 2. Oh, just picked up a new partner in Cincinnati too.
Excellent. And as far as, keeping in communication and keeping the culture of the team high, how do you go about that? What are some tips you can give for us listening around doing that?
That's a tough one. Because in some ways our culture is, if you can get along with me, then you can get along with anybody. And I once made an ex-Marine cry. So, yeah, sometimes I'm a pain in the butt.
I hope you didn't kill his cow, but
no. That was my post-cow killing phase. Understand that people have issues, and it doesn't always fit into your time frame, and that sometimes you're not the number one priority. So if you're working with partners, you got to understand that. And if you do, you can plan for those times when they can't get something done, but you don't want to let the client down.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And as far as your biggest challenge at the moment, what's the biggest challenge in running Mediavine marketing?
There's not 12 of me. Right now, our biggest issue is... That's a good question. Wow, you stumped me.
That's right. Do you want to come back to that one?
Yeah, let's come back to that. Let me think about that one for a bit.
All right, great. Well, look, just before we go into the next section, I'd like to mention our YouTube channel. It's called Build, Live, Give, and you can get awesome tips on how to help corporate escapees, just like Fred, to rapidly grow your business. So just go and subscribe. And if you really like the content and you think that your community or friends could get value from it, please share it. So it's once again in YouTube, and just type in Build, Live, Give, 3 separate words, and you'll get some brilliant content. So next is the Live section. So tell us about some daily habits that help you be really successful, Fred.
So daily habits is something that I'm actually in progress of changing radically. And that's because of health issues. As we chatted a bit before the show, about 11 days ago, I had a massive heart attack. And they put 3 stents into my heart. I had 3 totally blocked arteries, and the 4th one was partially blocked, and they were able to clean out 3 of them. So I've been shifting my daily habits around such that I exercise in the morning and actually eat breakfast, which is something I've always despised. So I'm actually in the progress of changing them. One of the things I think, though, that has always served me well is that I like working in the evenings, or what is evening for most people. And because there are people I can reach out to and talk to that aren't being bombarded by their daily stuff. and it really kind of eases communication. People aren't as stressed when I talk to them in the evenings as they are during the day. So I guess that would be my answer, is being able to work a broken day and get the health habits and the other stuff in what would normally be work time. I also find that having clients all over the world, it really helps to be able to talk to them in their own time zone, when they're ready to talk, not when I'm awake normally.
Great. And when Michelle, your partner, listens to this podcast, what would you, and she's listening right now, so what are you going to say to her about the support she's given you through this journey?
Oh, she's been awesome. Without her, we wouldn't have a company. She's the, I may be CEO, but she's the founding partner of it. And it was her brilliant idea to go into marketing because, well, there are people that knew me in my tech career now, and they see me, they just laugh at me because they know I used to consider the word marketing a 4-letter word.
Yes.
And the fact that I'm in marketing and as they say, I'm very good at it, it just makes them laugh and laugh and laugh. But I never would have picked it. And yet she was the smart one who said, we should go here. We can do this. And given that we started this back in about 2010, that was just really started to be where social media was becoming, people were going, hey, we can use social media to build business and do this stuff. And that allowed us to build large audiences in social media. And that just is a gift that keeps on giving.
Excellent. Look, the next section is the give section. So what's a cause or a community that you're passionate about and why?
Well, right now, we've had many causes in past. Veterans has been one. Homeless has been one. However, and this is partially because of clients, what I would say our biggest cause is increasing domestic violence awareness. It's horrifying that there is violence in homes, and it seems like every time I turn around, some bonehead is doing something horrible to their family. And so getting the word out about that and hopefully eventually eliminating it, that's something I think that is actually achievable if we push hard on it enough.
Great. And before we go into the last section, just back to the biggest challenges. Any further thoughts on some of your biggest challenges at the moment?
Yeah, it's time management when I look at it, because my partner is, both my partners are very, very, I'm going to say linear, and that's a very, very good thing. I've been described as a web thinking person. So I look at 10 points of data and can construct multiple different scenarios or profiles. I see patterns and I see patterns in data, and this is a phenomenal thing, but this also makes me see potential in a whole lot of things. And sometimes I can be kind of Homer Simpson-like and go, ooh, shiny penny, let's go do that. And usually that's when my partners have to throw a rope around me and tie me down, saying, no, keep focusing on what you're doing.
Great. Excellent. So the last section is the action section. And basically, I'll just ask you some quick questions and get rapid fire responses. So the first one is, what's your top 3 productivity tips?
The first one I would say is, if you're going to do digital marketing, schedule, you don't have to, schedule the same or a certain amount of time, preferably every day, to do it. I really believe that in LinkedIn and Twitter, and Facebook can be such a time suck. So you have to schedule time to do the social media, and don't go beyond it. I spend about an hour a day on LinkedIn, and I split that up into engaging with other people, with disseminating our own content. And I also spend about a third of that time going out and connecting with others. So my first one would be allocate the amount of time, and then when you're doing it, most people get into I'm going to do one of those things. I'm going to engage with other people. I'm going to post my own stuff. And it's a three-way thing of, yeah, you need to engage. Yeah, you need to get your own content out there, but you need to be building your network. You build your network correct, and that's going to support you for a long, long time. So do that with some care. The third thing I would say, and I suck at this one, is put your email away and only check it a couple of times a day, or 3 or 4 times, like once an hour or once every 2 hours. People get so sucked into it, and I've been guilty of this before, of going through their email and responding to stuff that isn't urgent. So for email, you got to do that. For a fourth tip, I would say schedule time to just sit there and relax. I'm lucky. I'm about a block away from the Pacific, so I will spend time each day going out, preferably with a cup of coffee, and sit there and watch the ocean go past. And I find that clears my head, and it lets me prioritize what needs to be done. And sometimes I just get inspiration and go, either that's why that worked or that's why that didn't work.
Brilliant. And some favorite apps or software that you use and recommend?
So I'm, as I think I said before, I have a love-hate relationship. Actually, I said a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. I have a love-hate relationship with Microsoft. Yeah. And what I found was there's an email app called Client that it has saved me so much time against used to using Outlook, because I can pull in I probably have a dozen email accounts and 5 or 6 calendars. And Client actually allows me to pull everything into one spot. And that's been one of the greatest time savers that I've found. It bar none, is probably the best thing I use. After that, I love Zoom. I found Zoom when I started to put together a virtual referral group, and I find that Zoom is a phenomenal tool, whether you're doing podcasts, whether you're trying to do sales calls remotely, whether you want to do webinars or just grab video. To me, you can't beat Zoom. I'm a real sold fan on it. And the last one I would say is Chrome, Google Chrome. That one's probably a no-brainer to most people, but then again, every once in a while I run into people using Safari or God forbid, Internet Explorer.
Yeah. And look, I think the hidden gem in Chrome is the extensions as well. I think, that's why I love Chrome so much. It's thirsty. I'll give it that, but just boost your RAM and then you can run some extensions. But, especially one I love is like videos, like, watch a video, you can put it to 3 times speed and it takes you a third of the time to watch it. It's gold. It's free and away you go on Chrome.
True that. It's a phenomenal tool and most people don't take advantage of it.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, look, you've given such wisdom in this show, Fred, but what's some parting advice you'd love to leave for, us corporate escapees?
I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. Do what you love, because when you're looking in death in the face, you're going to go no matter what. So in all the time leading up to it, if you haven't been doing something that you love, you've just been wasting time.
I think that's so powerful. And as we said prior to the going live, Fred, I had a bit of an incident as well a month ago. And the one thing that I loved is that I woke up and realized that I didn't want to change anything. What I'm doing now is what I love to do. Whereas if I had been back in corporate 7 years ago and I had woken up, it would have been, a complete change of life. And I'm so sad that it took, a passing of your dear past wife to trigger that for you. But I'm so glad that, you did go and change, but I'm also so glad that you survived 4 weeks ago, because I could only imagine what it would have been like for your children to lose both their parents to such a terrible thing. So I'm glad you've pulled through. I really appreciate you coming on the show, given you're only working half time at the moment. And what listeners can do is you can find out more about Fred at Media Vine. So media as in vine as in grapevine, marketing.com. We'll also have all the links to everything that Fred's mentioned in the show notes as well. But Fred, thanks a lot for being on the show today.
Thanks, sir. It's been great fun.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. It was a great interview by Fred, and I just want to summarize my 3 key points. So one is do something you're passionate about and you do well. Life is too short. The second was around direct messaging in LinkedIn. I think that's gold and I'm going to use it. And the third thing is pivot until you find your ideal client. Just keep going until you get it right. So those were the 3 great tips. I'd love to hear what you loved out of this episode. So email me at paul@buildlivegive.com. Also, if you know other corporate escapees that get benefit from this great podcast with Fred, please share it with them. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Corporate Escapees podcast, brought to you by Build, Live, Give. If you would like to join a community of like-minded peers, please visit www.buildlivegive.com. Until next time, thanks for listening and be brave.